Welcome to The Clean Slate with your hosts, Daniel Garza and Carson Phillips, providing you with movie news, reviews, and more. Sit back, relax, and don't forget to go to the concessions to get your popcorn and drinks. For your entertainment, this is The Clean Slate Podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to The Clean Slate Podcast. This is the show where two dudes review movies. So unlike anything you've ever seen before.
Brand new. This is a new style of podcast here. Okay, cool, guys. Well, welcome back to Noir-vember. We are discussing noir movies this entire month. So here is our next one, The Lady from Shanghai by Orson Welles. Fascinated by gorgeous Mrs. Bannister, Seaman Michael O'Hara joins a bizarre yachting cruise and ends up mired in a complex murder plot.
Ooh, yeah, that's the short way to explain it. The long way, I'll go into a little bit more detail here. This movie, like a lot of noir films, is very complex, nuanced, and there's a lot going on, unfolding mysteries, right?
Yeah.
So we have Michael O'Hara, who is played by the wonderful Orson Welles, who also directed and wrote this screenplay for this, who is playing against his wife in real life, Rita Hayworth.
Oh, no way.
What's her character's name? Elsa
Bannister.
Elsa Bannister. And basically he's introduced to her one night after rescuing her from some thugs.
Yeah.
And she's kind of smitten, even though she has a husband. Could be a weird deal going on. I don't know if there's an extra chair in the bedroom or what. But what ends up happening is he's basically like forced to work for them and at the husband's like request, which is really weird. And against his better judgment, he starts to work for them on this yachting thing, and they're cruising all around. They go to Mexico. It's a vibe, but there's a lot of tension between him, her, and the actual husband. And there's this third party, another guy who's like, "Hey, I'm trying to get away from my wife, and I want to make or have you make some money off it. So can I have you kill me, but not really?" And it's unclear what's going on there, and I don't want to spoil it. Excuse me, at this point. But there's a lot going on as far as the mystery goes. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anymore. But there's a lot more between all those characters and how they're all playing in this mystery.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of deception between all of them, really. Except for Michael. He's just chilling.
Yeah, he's just
a guy.
The Irish dude stuck in the middle of all of it.
Bold accent. That's a bold accent to do.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, we'll jump right into likes and dislikes right now. Likes is, I would say overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I think it's a really good, slower paced thriller mystery. It's kind of cute. It's kind of got like a nice little love story in there. But it really starts to unravel towards the end, which is something that I really enjoyed because it wasn't boring by any means. Like, I still think that the dialogue was strong enough in this movie. But you miss out on a lot of action, and especially in old-time movies like this, there's not too much going on. But for sure that the score of this movie, like, you can feel the entire orchestra behind this movie.
When they're in Mexico, dude.
Yeah, it just sounds really cool.
That.
And then I also think that the writing of it is so great that, like, I think every character that is important to this movie is really developed well. Especially Orson Welles, Michael O'Hara, his character, he's kind of caught in the middle, but he's got some definite growth and things like that happening to where it makes for a solid, rounded character. And then you got Elsa Bannister, who kind of plays the love interest, but then there's more to that later on. And so it gets a little deeper on her end without spoiling it.
Little femme fatale vibes.
Exactly. And then Arthur Bannister is, I think, the same thing. He's kind of got this evil villain type style to him, but you find out more about him later on. Yeah, go ahead.
So while you're on that thought, an interesting behind-the-scenes thing with his character, that actor usually worked with Orson Welles in a more radio capacity. He was known for working radio, which is what Orson started out in, was radio and stage plays. And this guy, he wasn't used to doing like physical acting as much. And so there was not much for him to fidget with. You know how like sometimes an actor that might be struggling, you'd give them something to fidget with, right? And so in this case, that's why they made him have a disability, the canes, to give him something physical to
like
make
do.
his. Yeah, to bring
that's
that
so
character
smart
to life more.
that's grounding in reality too for a character. Like one that adds depth to your character because then now you have a reason that this shady guy is on a cane. But at the same time, for an actor, that's really nice, especially for a new actor. It's really nice to have something to do on stage or on film. Okay, cool. Really really interesting fact. All right, go for your likes, Carson.
Yeah, I mean, I second everything you say. That soundtrack really is standout. It's
slaps,
fun and like it could get stuck in your head. I love all the cinematography in the Mexico scenes. I think is really cool. It has like this I don't want to say fantasy vibe, but like this otherworldly vibe as a whole. Like the whole movie's kind of like that, but it gets more and more as you go on. Like even like San Francisco towards the end of the film when they end up in San Fran.
Yeah.
It's not San Fran as you've seen it in like Vertigo. It's not like this majestic place. It's kind of like scary vibes. It's interesting.
But it's also
and then
calm
even seeing
at the
like
same time because like the streets are empty too, which is really interesting.
Well, that's the other thing that's interesting too is the aquarium scene where Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles are chatting and making out and doing their whole thing. It looks like a very real space.
Yeah.
But then you get these like weird, larger than life sea creatures in the background. I don't know why they did that, but ultimately I think it affects the style of the movie in a positive way.
Nice. Yeah.
Is really interesting, And so, yeah, the whole vibe, the mystery, I think is actually pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I watched this, I had no idea where it was going to end up.
Yeah,
so that was kind of exciting. And the ending is fantastic. The funhouse place.
Yeah.
That's the coolest ending to any movie. I don't know.
Any movie,
yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, no, I to
a lot of them. To a lot of these like Orson Welles
movies. And that's what I loved about the plot too, is because the plot took us different places. We're on a yacht. We're in Mexico. We're in San Francisco. We're in a courtroom. Then we're at a carnival.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different places that this
comedic courtroom almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this movie takes you in so many different directions. But I think that's what helped kept the plot alive because this movie is really dialogue heavy. And because it's more, it's mystery and thriller, so it's going to be a lot more like pay attention to what I'm saying rather than what is happening. So I think it did really well in that category. Okay, so dislikes. What do you have about some of the dislikes?
Sometimes the plot can be a bit much. As much as I enjoy the plot,
okay.
There's some issues with like I feel like we're missing context sometimes.
Sure.
And from what I understand, there's like an hour of footage missing from this movie that was taken out by the studios.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if that would add to the movie or take away from it. Because without it, I mean, it's a little bit more mysterious maybe. But
yeah.
So I think, maybe some of the writing. Obviously, there's like some of the old school stuff. Like the accent Orson Welles does is absurd. But maybe it's like, what's that movie? Knives Out. Like that Kentucky accent in Knives Out. But yeah, so that accent's horrible. And then I don't know. I feel like that's my biggest complaint is just some of the old timey, like the fight scene at the beginning is it's not a great start to the movie, especially if you haven't seen this era of cinema. You're going to be like, what is happening? Mm-hmm. So that could be a turnoff for a lot of people, I'd imagine. But
yeah, to go further on that point, though,
my biggest complaints
is that like these types of movies in the 40s really kind of start like that. They always start with something. It's like their interpretation of something big happening, but then it always kind of takes a while for you to find out what's actually going to happen in this movie. Because at first, I would say the first 20 minutes, you were really just like, okay, we're still in establishing of the world, and you don't know why or what. You don't really find out too much. I mean, I guess his narration of Orson Welles, but so I agree with you on that point. I also would say on his accent, like the narration was a strong Irish accent the entire time. But
it was fine. It wasn't that bad.
Then throughout the movie, his accent just drops so much, and I was like, okay. So there's that aspect to it. And then also something that I didn't like is, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I'm sure it's like related to the time, but a lot of times there was people talking over each other. And when you talked over each other, there was a lot of lost dialogue because they would just...
Like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Maybe, but it's just like everybody was mic'd. And anytime somebody talked, they just kept that mic on. Because like even the one scene that comes to my mind is when they go into, it happened a lot, but the only one that I can remember right now is when they're in the courtroom for Michael O'Hara, and then the
Yeah.
wife comes in. He's like, "Hey, this is my wife, and this is so and so," and she goes, "Hi, how are you?" But he's still talking, and so I was like, "Hi, how are you?" And I'm like, "Wait, what just happened? What did they say?"
They probably weren't pantomiming or any of that. They
Yeah,
were just actually just talking.
Exactly.
But I don't know like what kind of mics they had back then. It
I'm
might
sure
have
it
been
was
all
like
like
well, it might not have been
like a
pair,
giant shotgun mic.
yeah, something. But yeah, other than that, those are really kind of my only dislikes on the movie. It's just like technical stuff. I mean, there is the cheesy stuff too. I mean, it's a 40s movie, so some of it's going to be cheesy, like the car crash into the back of that truck, and just the.
I kind of like it.
I mean,
I kind of liked
sure.
it. I don't know why.
It kind of gave me Rear Window vibes. I don't know why, but it definitely.
I can see that.
But yeah, so I think that this movie, just because it had some of those things, the movie still is definitely worth a watch and definitely worth your attention on. It's very fun and it's very deep also at the same time. So yeah, any last final like, ooh, this in the movie?
I was just gonna say, do you have? How does this compare to other Orson Welles films you've seen? I know you famously hate Citizen Kane.
I do, yeah.
We watched Touch of Evil last Noir-vember, maybe the one before. I don't know if you've seen any other ones.
What are some of his other ones? I can't. Besides Touch of Evil, I can't really think of anything else that I've seen.
Just before he made this film, he had a film come out called Magnificent Ambersons.
No, I don't think we watched that. Or yeah. I would say, honestly,
I think we've only watched the two.
Just comparing the two, Touch of Evil and Lady of Shanghai. Touch of Evil, well, one, I like the name of Touch of Evil a lot more, but the plot for Touch of Evil was way more colluded, I would say, than this one. This one... There's
a lot. Like, too much.
In Touch of Evil?
In this one.
Oh, I didn't think so. I was able to follow along really easily. I mean, maybe a little bit between Bigsby, or Grigsby. Grigsby.
Yeah. Great accent from him. Or maybe not accent, but the way he speaks.
Yeah, it was good.
It's so strange and creepy.
Yeah. Actually, for Touch of Evil, I got lost a lot of the time. And, like, the beginning is really clear, but then in the middle, you kind of get jumbled up a bit.
Yeah.
I feel like this one did the same thing, but it was easier for me to, like, kind of refocus on it.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you?
I feel like they both have such strong endings.
Yeah.
That stick out to me.
Because Touch of Evil is the one that ends in the sewers, right?
He ends up Orson Welles' fat man body is like flailing and stuff. And he's like the most grotesque version of himself. He said that's what he wanted to do. And then this one, you have like kind of a dark ending too.
Yeah.
But it's visually stunning. Like that funhouse is, oh man.
Yeah, it was good. And especially with the mirrors.
Yeah, if you're not going to watch the movie, just look up the ending on YouTube.
It's pretty good. Cool. Well, yeah, guys, that is, I almost said Touch of Evil. That is The Lady from Shanghai. It's really good. It's really fun. And it's got a good, like, the love story is actually pretty decent in it. Like, I wasn't upset with the love story. It was kind of a love triangle and secret.
She's laying on the boat singing all sultry.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can go rent it, I believe, is the only way that you can watch this movie. Prime
There's a
Video
pretty available DVDs and Blu-rays.
Okay.
I have the Indicator edition.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a good one.
Nerd.
Lots of special features. I think Kino Lorber has a good edition as well, if you're that kind of guy.
Okay, cool, guys. Well, next week we got another noir movie for you to continue with Noir-vember. But, guys, thank you so much for sticking around in our podcast. If you're new to it, we just talk about movies and review them, and we both have different takes. Sometimes we get into arguments, so it's a lot of fun.
Fist fight.
Yeah, we meet each other and just start brawling. But anyway, guys, we will see you next week for another noir movie, and we got clips coming up on our socials too, so go like and repost those and share them too, because that'll be fun. But don't forget to like and subscribe, and also comment and share the podcast. But we will see you next week for our third week of Noir-vember. Peace.
That's a clean slate.